Good morning, everybody. Erev Shabbos Kodesh. First of all, uh, got some comments. Work on the end of this year. I got to work on my ending, and Bernie Bernfeld said I got to work on the middle part as well. But the beginning, the good morning part, good Shabbos part, is pretty good. So just got to work on just the middle and the ending. All that I got to work on, and I'm good to go. So good to be here, Baruch Hashem. Avi Hirsch is not here, but in Eretz Yisrael, back back in black, and it's good to be here. Really, been a month in America, different places, fancy five towns, and here we are back in Ramat Beit Shemesh with 100-degree weather. This week's parsha, pretty interesting parsha. It's really packed with a lot of thoughts. What's interesting is it's actually a sad part of the year for me. First of all, end of the year Devarim, it's just sad. Like Moshe Rabbeinu is going to die. Can't go to Eretz Yisrael. That's always very sad on Simchas Torah. A little bit actually here at the end of the parsha, but it's going to end my learning intensely the Sfas Emes. So 2 years, I put it into a little bit over 2 years. Went through almost all of it on the Torah, finishing it, God willing. And it's a little bit sad. Still be learning it, but picking up a different sefer. I'm not sure exactly which yet. Maybe Pri Hatzadik, or Tzaddik of Lublin, perhaps. Not sure yet, but more on that to follow. And this would kind of close the book a little bit on kind of this intense practice that I have. Usually I learn something for a year or two, with the exception of Kli Yakar, which was about 4 or 5 years I learned. And Sfas Emes was 2 years, pack a little bit more than 2 years. And there's some very stark differences between the two of them. And look at their backgrounds. Kli Yakar, most of his works was talking about Musar, working on the people. He was a Rav of the town. He was the Av Bezdin of Prague. He was the Rav of Prague. He traveled different places in Poland, and very famous speeches he gave in Lublin about Lashon Hara, speaking about people in Chutz La'aretz with fancy houses. Didn't like that. Didn't like people not giving tzedakah. He didn't like people becoming the Chazan Mashul, even though they're horrible, just because they had money. So a lot of things he talks about, really about social issues, other than Chavero things. Sfas Emes, on the other hand, a little bit more, not lumdus, more Kedusha perhaps, connecting to higher realms, Shabbos, connecting to Hashem in different ways, more of a positive. Maybe Surma Ra is more Kli Yakar, and Asay Tov is more Sfas Emes. Very different pieces, and they have different roles. A Rebbe is here to inspire you. A Rebbe is here to make you feel good all the time, give you positive lessons. And a Rav sometimes, or Rosh Hashiva has to kick in the pants sometimes, give you Musar sometimes. And these are almost nothing. I think I came across Sfas Emes talks really about Musar, what's going on in his community and his time. And Kli Yakar pretty famously goes through a lot of different Musar and talks about that in a lot of places. There's 2 points that really come to a head. We'll talk about the contrast. One is this week's parsha, Yirchav Hashem L'kecha. Hashem makes the borders great, and you have taiva to eat meat. And Kli Yakar, famously here and also in Bereshis, talks about that not a good thing to really get used to meat. It should be similar to having to tzayid, to chase it as hunting it. That we know that Esav had to go hunt for it. And Kli Yakar says this should be the approach of eating meat. It shouldn't be something that you have a huge fridge in your basement with a lot of steaks and meats. It should be something that you're not getting used to all the time. The more you get used to eat the finer things, it kind of takes you away from focusing on holy and spiritual things. I'll be the first one to tell you, everyone likes going to Papagaya's and all-you-can-eat meat or Brazilian steakhouse I went to with my brother-in-laws and sister-in-laws in Queens. Fantastic. But Kli Yakar wasn't a big fan of that. The Ramban famously says the more you eat of animals, the more you take the tendencies, which is Kli Yakar. Sfas Emes says something a little differently. Sfas Emes says every person is supposed to have meat. He's supposed to eat meat. It's Even, there's Domain, domain someach chai medaber. There's a literally food chain, and the holiness goes higher and higher. And a person's job in this world, a Jew at least, is to take the kedusha and the holy sparks in plant, in animals, and raise it to a higher level. And that's something that Sfas Emes talks about. So again, a little bit of a different take on meat. Kli Yakar would say, not so often, and Sfas Emes would say, no, Adarabba. The more you could take the kedusha, you take from these places and raise the kedusha, you put it into the food. You're releasing the holy sparks, and you're raising the kedusha. One piece. Another piece is tzedakah. Kli Yakar talks a lot about giving tzedakah, not waiting until you're dead to give tzedakah. Give tzedakah when you're alive. You should do this all the time. And he famously also, a very interesting piece of Musar, where he does not like people that are collecting money, and they shouldn't have to collect money. And he says this is not tzedakah. Someone who can really work and make a living, and they choose not to, there's no mitzvah tzedakah for that person. Ayin Sham. And Sfas Emes says very differently. Sfas Emes says, talk about tzedakah. Tzedakah is a way to raise the rest of your money to a higher madrega. Just like truma. You get truma and meiser off, and it raises the kedusha of your own stuff. It's tevel, can't eat it. Now you took truma and meiser off. Your own chulin, your own chol stuff is a higher level, even though it's chulin, but you're causing it to get higher. When you think about Hashem and you take stuff off of your own to give to a higher purpose, the stuff that you keep inherently gets to a higher level. Tzedakah, you give to a poor person, you give to other people, it causes the level of kedusha to be higher of your own money. This week, I was actually zocheh to meet someone who actually takes tzedakah to a higher level than even that. There's an organization called Daily Giving, where you give $365 a year or $2 a day, and this organization, dailygiving.org, gives the money. They vet all these organizations, and at the end of the day, you get an email that says, this money was given to this place in Eretz Yisrael, Bonei Olam, Tomchei Shabbos, Rofei Cholim, all these organizations, 365 organizations, and each day you get an email that shows where your dollar went for that day, which is fantastic. A person should give money every day. Well, this fellow named Josh Newman from London, who I actually met for the first time, whose son-in-law is my neighbor, Sammy. And Sammy said to me, this guy, Josh Newman, does something really different. Before work, he gives tzedakah. Okay? This way, every day, it's another reminder to Hashem. Besides giving tzedakah, your reminder, think about Hashem and chesed. But when you give money before you go to work, this actually now in your mind, the shefa I'm going to get from my job comes from Hashem. And this every day he does. And I thought about this. And I said, you know what? I was never one of those guys to give every day. I give to the shul. They have memberships. Someone comes collecting. But to kind of put it on myself to give every day. And I say this not to really boost my own ego, but to, you do good things, supposed to tell people. This way they can have hashpah on it. And I took it on myself that every day of the year, I think I mentioned this, is to give tzedakah, something, 20 shekel, 30 shekel, $5, $8, and to write down in the journal. One day was Atlanta, a shul in Atlanta, Meron, Yisrael, another family in Meron after the big collapse in Meron, the stampede. Teres Yaakov, Yad Ezra. It's all these different places that, and I see a guy in shul. I went up to this new guy and I met him, talking to him. Then afterwards, my friend Sammy said, that's the father-in-law, that's the guy. So the next day, I brought my journal and I showed this guy. I said, you really inspired me, and I hope to inspire other people. And just this week, my daughter in Camp Hask, she's a waitress there, Daily Giving, came to Hask. And that night, my daughter texted me. She says, you should do this each day. And I said, you know what? I actually do this. I've been doing this for almost a year already. And I'm happy that she thought of me when she thought of Daily Giving. She thought that I would enjoy and do this. So that's, again, I'm not trying to boost my own horn and my own self, but it's something that I hope that could rub on other people. That besides giving every day, which is a mitzvah, And besides ingraining yourself and ingraining your children to give tzedakah and think about chesed, but now you're kind of now taking your daily work and you raise to higher madrega, just like you take the food and you raise the level, and you give meiser and raise the level of kedusha by taking my job and starting the job at 8 o'clock, 8:30. Say, you know what? I know this is really, it's my work, but it's really all from Hashem, and I do this with this reminder by giving a few dollars tzedakah each day. And in closing, Bernie and Menachem, in closing, just Shabbat Shalom. Hope you take these lessons of giving tzedakah, think about chesed, and always think about helping other people, and thinking about this, and tying all your actions, whether it's work, whether it's play, whether it's exercise, tying all your actions to Hashem to raise the Kedusha in your actions and in your day. Shabbat Shalom from Eretz Yisrael.